life takes a spin. Join the fun, let the talk begin.
A better way to start out the podcast with a little bit of an opening chord over there.
Yes.
And
let's
start off with the L'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה bidbaro.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה bidbaro.
Amen. All right. Well, Yosef Daniel, you've come equipped.
Yeah.
So why don't you play us something a little bit of a short intro or something, and then we can talk.
I was thinking on the way over here, you know, the nigun, the famous nigun that we've been singing throughout this time, you know, since the beginning of this war, you know, and it's just been embedded in our neshamas, you know. It's a beautiful melody, but it's also like a cry out to Hashem, and I really like it. the nigun, I guess you can tell me which the Rebbe the cuts in the verb. Little harmonics there.
So, how did you get into music?
Great question. So actually, my grandfather in Mexico taught me the first couple of, you know, notes on the guitar.
How old are you?
7.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I still remember that day. It was a hot summer day, you know, in Mexico. I spent a lot of my vacation time in Mexico, you know. So my summers are all filled with memories of my grandparents, and that was one of my first memories, is him teaching me a couple of, you know, things on the guitar, and me sitting outside and practicing it over and over again.
Yeah.
And he was actually a wood maker, so he made, you know, like everything from like tables, chairs, like, you know, that was his line of work. And he was a musician, and he was inspired to make some instruments. So he, by hand, you know, with very simple tools, made a cello,
Wow.
a cello. Yeah, I got a chance to see that. It was more like a stand-up bass, you know. But that and a guitar, I think I saw as well. A guitar and a violin. So yeah, and he played all his instruments, you know.
Amazing.
So,
Wow,
yeah.
That's a real skill.
Yeah, yeah. So he turned me on to music early on. My uncles were very like big music lovers, and you know they listened to and sang, you know, all of the like the traditional Mexican music, you know, with the big hats, mariachi music. So
I'm getting this picture in my mind. Yeah.
Oh,
guys in
yeah.
the sombreros.
oh, absolutely. They all wore cowboy hats, you know. And they all sang these songs, you know, there was like a certain passion, you know, that kind of attracted me there. Of course, it was all like about love songs, you know, things like that, you know. You left me, you know, things like, you know, songs like that. But just the passion was there. And even at a young age, I knew it was like, okay, the passion's like, like this is. It was obviously I wasn't at the age to understand love or like relationships and things like that, but I just saw that, and attracted me to music. So I started to love every type of music. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned that it's like I always think about all the words that people put into their songs and whatever. And I remember what Rav Haber has said a few times is that dvarim yotzim min halev nichnasim lalev. Things that come out from the heart go into the heart.
Yes.
So you got to be very careful.
Right.
Whose heart you're letting into yours.
Absolutely. That's a big one.
Because music is a very powerful drug.
Yeah.
And you got to. And this is like something else that I picked up from the world of podcasts. Like Scott Adams is like, he says you actually have to treat music like a prescription drug. You have to be very careful because music can very much affect your mood. If you listen to depressing music, you will get depressed.
Yeah.
If you listen to happy, upbeat music, it'll lift your mood.
Absolutely.
So like I've kind of myself in my choices of what music I'm listening to.
Yes.
I'm very careful what lyrics are in the music.
Right.
And B, I like to listen to stuff that makes me feel uplifted, happy, energized.
Yeah.
And not the kind of, oh, she left me, why did she leave me, oh, I'm gonna die.
Right. Yeah, melancholy is something that music can bring. I recently, I would say that, as a musician, I don't listen to as much music as people might assume. When people see me with my headphones, like I remember the first time Rabbi Goldwag, when I used to work here at the Park Center, and he'd see me with my headphones, working or walking around and stuff, and he's like, he asked me one day, he said, what are you listening to? And I said, actually, I'm listening to a shir. And he says, what? You're listening to a shir? I said, yeah. But aren't you
why the surprise?
Yeah, right. Yeah, why are you surprised? So he says, well, aren't you a musician? I said, yeah, but music's boring. That's what I told him. I don't know why I said that.
That was not what I expected to hear from a musician.
That's not, I mean, it's just, I guess, to listen to a shir is just more, a shir is music to me. I feel the chidushim, they just, maybe because music has lost that, for me. Like, in my past, you listen to music to, like, stir up your emotion, or like to stir up your intellect or to stir up your whatever it was, and it just nothing that obviously I don't, listen to, world music and as much as I used to. So a shir just does it for me. But music is very, very powerful, and it can change a person like over time. Just to touch on that, one last, point. During my teenage years, when I was playing, I used to play electric guitar, a lot, and for me, it was like it was a drug, and I felt like it was, and I wanted to practice my guitar, and like so I had a big stereo in my room, And I had my guitar amp, and I'd plug in, and I would listen to this rock band that was like very melancholy, you know. And I realized, like, after a week or so, I was like doing this every day, you know, just really rocking out and just jamming out, like really rocking it out and stuff in my room. And after a while, I started getting like really kind of like, you know, depressed, and like started looking at life differently.
That's that dynamic at work
Yeah.
there. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it is a very powerful tool, and it's also another point that I do know some Jewish musicians, and I hope nobody gets offended by this, but they listen to other religious music, let's say, because there's a lot of good production out there.
Yeah.
A lot of great musicianship, but you know, and even though some music says God, or you know, basically Christian music, you know, that that says God in it, or you know, is like a life kind of like giving you my heart kind of a song. It doesn't refer to the God that we serve. It's actually referring to a different God, you know. And so it's a form of participating in avodah zarah, and that definitely can ruin your emunah. So that's a big one.
Yeah, it's something to be careful
Yeah.
of. So, yeah, you're talking about what I'm really fascinated to hear is, again, your whole journey. You've told me like certain snippets of your journey in our past meetings, but you know, people on the podcast haven't heard it before. So,
Right.
why don't we take us through your beginnings? You told us about early life in Mexico. You were born in Mexico.
I was born in Mexico. Yes.
Right, and that's where you grew up. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was born in Mexico. I grew up in.
By the way, if you feel comfortable to put down the guitar,
I'm fine.
You happy with it? No,
I'm fine.
Whatever's good.
I'm fine, thank you. So I grew up in Texas. Texas, you know, was my home since I was 7 months old. My mother was.
Oh, okay. So you were born in Mexico, but you moved to Texas,
Right.
Before when you were a baby.
Right.
Okay, got it.
So my father was in the U.S. Air Force.
Wow.
My mother
Okay.
was a student, and she basically went back to Mexico to have me and then be with her family, you know, for help. And we, you know, I grew up in Texas. So basically, you know, my parents were. My father was the evangelical Christian. He grew up in a Baptist church, and he eventually started going to a different, you know, Pentecostal, different denomination that was more charismatic, you know.
What does charismatic mean?
Charismatic is like,
I mean, I know what a person is when they're charismatic, but what does a church mean that it's charismatic?
so a church that's charismatic is, I'll give you an example. This is an extreme. There was a church in Texas that was categorized as extreme charismatic. There's a verse, you know, in the New Testament that says that there's a story of the Apostle Paul, right? This is a character in the New Testament that him and his disciples were out in the wilderness, and he was building a fire, and a snake, you know, came out of nowhere or whatever and bit his hand, and nothing happened to him.
This sounds like a Gemara, I know. Okay, but carry on.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of this stuff is copied from Gemaras, really.
Yeah.
But this is it was a poisonous snake or whatever, and nothing happened to him. Okay, so a charismatic or church, right, will take things like that, stories like that, and actually like do these acts.
Try and reenact them.
Try to reenact them.
Like
okay?
find a poisonous snake and get them to...
There was a church in Texas that was taking snakes and allowing them to bite. These people were taking up snakes and bite.
This does not sound like it's going to end well.
Well, I think people died, and this is why the you know, the authorities had to go in and break up the party. You know what I mean?
It's like one step removed from Jim Jones.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So, you know, you had all kinds of stuff like that. That's charismatic. That's charismatic. So, yeah, so that's charismatic. And as a musician, I met a lot of these different characters. A lot. A lot.
Wow. Okay.
Very charismatic people. You know, so another example was like speaking in tongues. Speaking in tongues was like something that also happened in the New Testament. It's basically gibberish, you know, but to them it's like, no, it's a holy language. It's a lot of people just make up words or whatever, and they're like meditating, and like this is stuff that happened, that supposedly happened, you know, in the New Testament, and people take it upon themselves to reenact these things, and so
they start just blabbering gibberish.
It's just gibberish.
And this is a spiritual experience. Okay.
Supposedly.
Okay.
Supposedly, it's like people that live in the, like these monks that live in the mountains and hum, you know, do all these things, you know, hum, you know, whatever. Same thing. It's just something that's like
okay, I'm not going to knock it if that works for them. They're not doing any harm to anybody. You know.
Well, that's yeah. So there are.
If you're getting poisonous snakes to bite people, yeah, I'm not so comfortable with that. But if you're just making people that go blah 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 blah, okay, you know.
Or there's another, which is not. I don't think it's related to the Christian church, but there was a cult that I studied sociology and psychology in college. That was my my major. And so I was studying we did different projects and stuff, and we came across the Church of Laughter. so which was interesting.
Like the Ministry of Funny Walks, but
something like that. Something like that. So these people, that was a thing. You go out like in the in the boondocks or whatever, and they had like with these music festivals, they go out there and they live in tents for like a week or whatever. But their thing was laughter, and it just...
That sounds like fun.
It sounds...
Did like get a comedian? Did they get a comedian in to?
No, it was just like just if you laughed, you were like you were top, you were level. You know, you were on a level.
You're not laughing at anything in particular.
Nothing.
You're just faking a laughter.
Yes.
Okay, that's starting to get a little creepy.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So a lot of this charismatic church were very creepy. And when you have, characters like that in the church, like there's other stuff that's going, there's a bunch of other stuff that goes on, not just that. Because when people can live in a fantasy world like that, that there's no truth. This is why we have what's truth, like when you say emet, titen emet le Yaakov, right? Yaakov Avinu was the epitome of truth. And we always think, the first thing we think of is like, okay, so we're the people of the truth, we're the people of the Torah. And yes, but it doesn't end there. It means like, that's fake. That's, like, we're able to understand and discern when something doesn't have genuine purpose, when something doesn't have reality, it's not real, it's something that is a passing, fad. And this is, we've outlived all of these different practices, charismatic groups and things like that. And that's what one of the things that attracted me towards Torah, towards Judaism, is you don't see many. You see, okay, there's some things.
We have our little share of cults and things, but it's not.
It's not mainstream. It's not the main. Yeah, it's not the mainstream. It's not the. It's not exactly what people look at when they see, when they look at Am Yisrael. But anyways, so my father was, kind of involved with that, and then he started going to a Sabbath keeping. It was like they believed that Shabbat was Friday night until
like the Seventh Day Adventist.
Like a Seventh Day Adventist, right? Mm-hmm. And then my mother grew up Catholic, so when she met my father, he introduced her to this. This was new for her, and it was Christianity also, which was new to her. She grew up Catholic, so there was like different gods and stuff, and now that's what
Catholic, for like a lot of our audience here is going to be Jewish and not really know what's the difference
Sure.
between, you know, like I also only really understood the difference between Catholic and Christian.
Sure.
That they're not. I thought like Catholic was just a kind of Christian.
Right.
But
It is.
But when I met like some of my colleagues internationally and in these interfaith groups and whatever, I heard, oh, there's actually, they're very particular about calling themselves Catholic as opposed to Christian. And
Right. There is a huge difference. Well, modern day evangelical Christianity, for example, will consider Catholicism as idolatry, right?
Yeah, I've heard that from people as
Right.
well.
Which was how we looked at it. Well, like how you know we grew up. I say we because I always think my wife and I, you know, we grew up in the same vein, in the same denomination, the same like setting. Her father was a pastor, and so
your mother was Catholic.
but my mother was Catholic from Mexico, and not a very strong practicing, you know, Catholic, but she was, you know, that's all she knew until she met my father, and then she got introduced to this new kind of belief, and then she didn't know anything about the Sabbath, the Shabbat, you know, and she started to learn little by little. Also kashrut, that was another thing that we were taught, that, you know, you're not only allowed to eat the animals that were described in the Tanakh that were clean.
And pork?
We didn't eat that.
Ah, really?
Yeah, it was asur.
Now, that's interesting, because I mean, a long time ago, I was a student. I had a vacation job in engineering. I was working on a shop floor in a switchboard factory, and one of the guys I was working with was a very devout Christian, and he was. And he like followed a lot of these rules as well, and he said no, he would never even. He follows the laws of the Bible, of the Old Testament, and he's like I saw that he had a little grill that he brought to work to cook his meat on, right? And he cooked it like bone dry. I said, "Why are you cooking it so hard?" He said, "No, I've got to get rid of all the blood because the blood is." I said, "Oh, well, even we Jews aren't that strict. Like we get rid of the blood we get rid of. This is there's a certain amount of blood that we've got to get rid of. But the little juice that comes out of the meat, we don't call that blood. That's not. That's completely.
Also, we salted before, so it's
right. And we've also been doing all the salting and whatever. But and I said, okay, so you keep all this stuff. What about pork? He says, no, pork is different because Jesus went and did this whole ritual and drove the bad spirits out of the pigs, and then it was okay to eat the pigs. And I say, okay, well, whatever, if that's your halacha, you go ahead and enjoy your pork. But that's interesting. But you didn't.
So no, we didn't partake. I mean, when you go out to a restaurant, most of the food is cooked with lard. You know what I mean? Like. Not kosher restaurants. Not kosher restaurants. No, but so
Right. So instead of like canola oil, they're using lard.
Right. Absolutely, it's cheaper. Whatever.
Actually, animal fat is cheaper than vegetable oil.
I believe so. Yeah.
Really.
Especially pig. Lard is pig fat. So a lot of this stuff we didn't know. We didn't consider it. We didn't whatever. Also, the meat and dairy we didn't know. These are like Rabbanan.
No, meat and dairy is not the Rabbanan.
Not necessarily.
But it's Torah Sheba'al Peh. That's the thing. It's like whatever's Torah Sheba'al Peh, you can't expect anyone to.
Right. The explanation of it.
Right.
Like none of that. So there was a few things that I learned once I was learning Torah that I remember learning from the pastor, which was my wife's uncle, like the story of Terah. Avraham Avinu's father. Yeah. And how the story of the idols that he had.
So he had midrash. He had
something. There was something there. But so my father introduced my mother to this church, and she started going. She was baptized. She was she went all in. As time passed, my parents actually divorced when I was 9 years old. And my mother continued to go. My father stopped going. He actually stopped going to any church, really. But he was a pretty godly person. He was like a righteous, righteous going. You know what I mean? He would wake up in the morning and he had his tehillim with his coffee, And he always taught us to respect, the Tanakh, like he taught us a lot of good principles, to always, speak to God, like basic principles, but that were very valuable, So anyway, fast forward a few years later, and I was, let's say 20, in my 20s already. I want to fast forward like to something interesting that happened to me. That kind of changed my course of life and really made me want to like pursue something that was completely outside of. I felt like I was in search for something that was not reachable even, which is strange, right?
Yeah.
How in the world, and I hear this from a lot of people that converted to Judaism, is that they felt like they didn't belong where they were, and they felt like, and I describe it as I was trying to find something that really was not around me in retrospect, Obviously Hashem's everywhere, but, it was just not anywhere. I didn't grow up with Jewish people, even remotely close to me. I grew up with, African.
Did you even know anything that there was such a thing as Jewish people?
Nothing. To be honest with you, and this is something that I always talk about, because it's something that to this day I'm like, how in the world, Hashem? Wow, it's crazy, Just twist of plot, kind of thing. Yeah. But I didn't know nothing. Like New York City, there's Jewish people there, But
Which part of Texas were you in?
Corpus Christi, Texas.
Yeah. Is there a Jewish community there?
Very small. There's a Chabad rabbi there now.
Yeah.
In the past couple of years, and there's like a couple of Israelis that I don't know if it's still a thriving. I don't think it's a thriving community, but it's like it's people that go for like Yom Kippur or whatever. They don't have a minyan there. Mm-hmm. I don't know about now, but they didn't have a minyan when I was there. Yeah. So I had no exposure to Judaism, to Jews, to nothing like that. I think the closest was we read in 8th grade, when I was 14 years old, we read the book of Anne Frank, the Diary of Anne Frank. We saw the movie, and I was left with a huge question mark. I was like, this is no internet at the time, you can't go on. Yeah. There's no social media. There's all these, social media activists, Jewish people all over the world, Israel on the news. There was nothing. There was no Israel in the news, by the way. I didn't even know Israel existed. The pastor took a trip here, came to Eretz Israel, and went back and was like, oh, it was great. And so, but that there was Jews living here, that there was practicing Jews living here, nothing. I had no clue. So after the story of Anne Frank, the whole thing, I had a huge question mark in my head, like, do Jews still exist? Really? Do Jewish people still exist? Or like they were all, as Shalom, Am Yisrael Chai, baby. And then when I was 15, I was at a friend's house. We had like a slumber party, sleepover, whatever. Bunch of teenager boys, whatever. We're all horsing around, this and that. And then all of a sudden, he puts on this movie that got everybody into like a real somber mood, which was the Schindler's List movie. I was like, wow, you just killed it.
Oh, wow.
In a way. But I
have trauma from watching that movie.
Me too. So what happened is like I told him, look, man, I can't. I did something to me that to this day I can't. I told him, take it off, please. It was like almost close to the end of the movie, whatever. But I was like, I got the point. Like, please take it off. And he took it off, whatever.
Yeah.
And after that, I was for sure there was no Jewish people.
Yeah.
Seriously, I was like, nah, this was 15
Schindler
years
saved
old.
them. So you got the bit that Schindler actually saved people, so there must have been some left.
There must have been some. But even then, I was like, and I didn't watch the whole movie.
Yeah.
But I think I saw pieces of it later, and I understood the whole situation and everything like that. But to me, it was just like, wow, this is a nation that existed in the Bible, and now There's no more. So, and also, just so you know, the reason why I kind of had that in my head is because Christianity teaches what's called replacement theology.
Yeah.
So that replacement theology thing kicked in, and I was like, oh, I guess we are the new, kind of thing. So basically, it was a very like how can I say it, defining moment for me, because I always connected to the stories of David HaMelech, the stories we sang songs, about King David. We learned about everything. We learned about Moshe Rabbeinu, Kiryat Yam Suf. We had songs, of this, growing up, and it was just it was hard to how do you say, to process that. And time passed, and I was I'm gonna fast forward to when I was in my 20s now. Again, no real connection towards Israel or nothing that's going on here. That Jewish people,
Just a feeling that there's that you're looking for something that's not here.
Right. And I remember during this time of my life, 23, 24 years old, I had toured with a band. I played music. I went to different churches and played with our band. Like, I had experienced something that I always wanted to do with music, and I recorded some music as well. And I was like a DJ at a radio station. Like, I did a lot of cool things, and I was like, man, I kind of want to settle down. And I thought, I'm getting a little bit to that age where by the way, the Mexican culture is very much like the Haredi culture, where it's just like, hey, you're 18.
Not married yet?
You're 18. No, every wedding you go to, soon by you. Yeah. So
yeah.
So it was like that. I was already in my 20s, and I started to feel like, okay, like I want to live for a wife, not that I was not thinking that before. Obviously, I always, being responsible, but at the same time, I was just like, I'm gonna do music, whatever. And in this time, I had a friend that was involved with illegal activities. I had some family members that were also involved with the Mexico trade
gangs
system,
like the cartels,
the drugs, the drug stuff, because we lived on a border city,
right?
And I think you get sucked into it because the money is like a big attraction, and people think that I'll make money and do a couple of things here and there, make a couple of runs. It's just
when you're at that age, you think you're invincible.
Yes, and, absolutely. So I don't know. I think one of my mother's brothers got involved. I don't know what age, but by the time I was 14, he was sent to federal penitentiary.
Sure.
Spent 5 years and came out and spent another 5 years. I had from my father's side as well. And then I had some friends that were like involved with things, and these are friends from church. But then I also had my friends in school, and I also made friends. I also got to know a lot of people. So there was a whole kind of like a mixture of good environment when I would go to church, and I had this like kind of like good experiences and good people, and good principles, I would say, which interestingly enough, I come to find out that some of the people in my church that taught me some very like good, principles and like very stand-up people, that were actually Jewish, and they knew this. They told us while we were converting, oh, we're Jewish. Our mother is Jewish. I'm like, what? So these were my teachers. These were my like Sunday school teachers, well, Sabbath school teachers, So they raised me. I grew up with Jewish people,
And they were not practicing Jewish.
They were not practicing Jews.
They just had the neshama.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like one of the things that I remember learning from them was Shiloh Hakan, the mitzvah of Shiloh Hakan. Yeah.
That is a rather obscure one.
Well, a friend of yeah.
I mean, it is explicit at least.
It was on the spot.
Right. It's written it's written explicitly in the Torah. It's not one of those Torah Sheba'al Peh things, but yeah,
right.
It's not normally the one that's one of the popular ones to learn.
Right. Well, what happened is a friend of mine and I were like messing with a nest.
Yeah.
And his father, he was one of the pillars of the community.
Yeah.
He stops and says, "What are you guys doing?" Whatever. And he says, there's a, I don't know what he called it. It must have been something like, we have a rule. Because that was the thing, we have a rule, whatever. It's like, who's we, But he started explaining the mitzvah of Shiluch HaKan. It was interesting. Okay, so
you were telling me about your experience. You were 23 and you got friends who were involved in the gangs.
Right, so I had friends that were involved. I have close friends that were involved, unfortunately, with illegal activity, this and that. And I tried to balance, because I obviously had a lot of, affection or connection, and they were like family. A lot of people were, so I tried to balance my life, and try to, I guess, choose, who, where, what I was going to do with my life. And I was always in that dilemma, but I had a friend that was a big drug dealer in the neighborhood, and he was a very, very close friend. He was like a big brother. He was taken, to jail. He was, finally caught up to him or whatever. And I remember I was kind of alone at that time in my life,
Where were your parents at this time?
So my father was still living. My father passed away 14 years ago, something like that. But he had his own life. At this point, he was older.
You were living with your mother?
I was living with my mother. I was kind of on my own. Actually, I was not living with my mother. I was living on my own. I had some roommates, whatever. But I had a friend. One night we were out. This guy was like a new Christian, and he was gung-ho. He was wanting to talk to the whole world about, his newfound religion, whatever. And he was in a rock band and stuff. He's he wanted to speak to everybody that he knew about how, God had changed his life and things like that. He wanted to give his testimony,
Yeah.
and stuff. So I'm for it, but at the same time, I'm I don't. I wasn't so charismatic like that, I had done that, whatever. But he was so adamant about. We were out one night. We were out late, and around my mother's house, there were some friends out. So he wanted to go speak to them. So he says, let's go speak to them. Let's go witness to them. That's what was the word he used, So he says, let's go speak to them. You can't miss an opportunity and this and that. So I said, we went. We were there for a little while. We left. We come back late at night. It was 1 o'clock. He says, let's go back. And I was like, nah, they're drunk by now, who cares? Let's leave those guys alone, man. I want to go to sleep. He says, no, it's around my mother's house, around the corner from my mother's house. So he says, come on. So he keeps driving, he was driving, and he says, no, I'm not going to drop you off. We're going to go. You can stay in the car if you want, but, I'm going to go talk to these guys and save their souls, and I was like, wow, so we ended up going, I get off, we're there talking. After a while, maybe 20 minutes, we hear these pops. I turn around, and there was a car parked not there was the street we were on this. We were behind a car, and there was a car this way, and I saw the spark, and I knew they were shooting at us. So I turned, I ran.
Who's they?
Whoever these guys were, I'll tell you. I knew we were getting shot at. I turned around, I started running between these houses, and I used to play soccer, like a good Mexican boy. Mm-hmm. And I felt my ankle twist or whatever, So I kept running, and I was like, I twist my ankle. And then I hid behind the houses. I look over. I saw they stopped shooting, whatever. They shot 8 times. And the car took off. and I was just like watching or whatever, and make sure they didn't come back or somebody else comes. I didn't know what was going on. I had no.
This was
clue.
in Corpus Christi.
This was in Corpus Christi, yeah. And I was like, my ankle that I twisted started burning more and more and more and more, and I was like, nope, I got shot. So I go to the front of the house and I started yelling, are you guys okay? Whatever, and, making sure everybody was okay. Somebody was on the ground, so we picked him up. He was shot in the stomach, but the funny thing is that he was a little chubby, so the bullet went through his fat. He was like, the bullet went this way, so it went through his fat layer, didn't go in his body, So, we got rushed to the hospital. I got stitched up, and a few days later, I went out with that same friend.
He wasn't injured.
He wasn't injured. Yeah. The funny thing is that this is a funny story. This is like after they had already left, he was trying to jump the fence next to me because I was in between houses.
Yeah.
So the next house, there was a fence, so he's trying to jump the fence. I'm like, they already left, guy. They already left. He's still trying to jump. He's like, no, I think I might come back. And it was just the whole thing. Oh, gosh. And so, so I spent some time in the hospital. I spent 4 days in the hospital, and I just was like really praying because at this point, we found out somehow. It was so crazy how we found out the next day exactly who it was, and it was a gang, and they were after one of the guys that we were talking to was causing problems with him, and it was a love triangle.
Oh my!
Yeah, so we were just at the wrong place at the wrong time.
So they just didn't care who got caught in the crossfire.
They did not care. They didn't care. Wow. They were after him, and they were ready. So these were young guys. I think they were like in their late teens, maybe. So we found out who it was. My friends and some friends that were like, a little crazy found out, and it's a gang from like the other side of town, and from our side there was a gang there. And this is not Chicago or something like crazy, but there were shootouts. There was dangerous people. Mm-hmm. There were crazy people. And maybe for me, it was just like, okay, I grew up here, so it doesn't bother me. Gunshots, okay, gunshots, who cares, So,
Yeah.
Okay.
I grew up in South Africa, so I know also a bit about
what I mean? Like,
yeah.
you get used to it or whatever. I saw a drive-by shooting when I was like 7. I saw a car pull. Yeah.
Wow.
So, things like that. And, also... Yeah, there was shooting. It's Texas, You're gonna, if you live there long enough, you're gonna either hear.
That's not my impression of Texas.
No, there's people like to shoot guns. Yeah. I shot a bunch of guns by the time I was 12. I shot all kinds of different guns. Yeah, and even Mexico also. New Year's Eve, my grandfather used to take out his gun, and shoot a couple rounds. Yeah, New Year's Eve. No, so
it really won't come down anywhere dangerous.
Yeah, right? I don't know where he was pointing, but I was come inside, Grandpa. No, it was just like that in Texas. You just most of my friends had had guns by the time we were teenagers and things like that. Anyways, it was a crazy time. At that moment, I was like, I got to get out of here. I gotta get out of Corpus Christi, It was like, it was not good. I had friends that were coming to my house and asking me, can we help you? Things like that. Can we take care of these guys? I'm like, whoa, it was a difficult time, and I was like, I spent after four days in the hospital because I had an infection, and they took a piece of my pant out of they made an incision, and they said, oh, this is why you're having an infection. So I spent four. I
was just thinking, like 4 days sounds a long time for a wound.
Yeah, no, it was something, an infection, and they said no, we just want to make sure you're okay. Yeah. Nothing happened. Like there was no like not even the bone was hurt. Like there was usually the doctor told me that usually when you have at least
you got a lot of bones in your foot.
Yeah, he said it's a miracle. it's really a miracle how this thing just, I don't know, it could have been a small gun, you know, like a small gauge, but nonetheless,
So the bullet didn't lodge in your foot; it went through.
it went like around. It's really weird how it's like your ankles.
And there was an entry and an exit.
An entry and an exit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like went through here and came out. Like, it went in and out. And no bone was affected. Baruch Hashem. But, you know, I spent these days in the hospital and I was just really, I was like, wow, I don't have nobody, you know, I don't feel secure. I felt a little bit afraid, you know, in the way.
I guess being shot at can do that to you.
Yeah. But the thing is, there was nothing against me, but still, I was just...
That even more so. Like you weren't even involved in this love triangle, and you're still collateral damage.
Yeah. But I thought to myself, just the mentality. I think it was more than anything the mentality of the people that, you know, it was like people don't care. You know, people just don't care. They don't have a care. And you know, I thought to myself, you know, I can either end up in jail if I try to retaliate, because people were like, you have to retaliate, you have to do something, you can't. I'm like, whoa, where'd you come from?
Yeah, you can't show that you're a wuss, and you.
Yeah, you can't let these people, you know, come into. And I'm like, who cares? Like, I'm not gonna put my family at risk, you know.
When you say your family, your mother, you have siblings.
I have 3 sisters.
Who are older or younger?
One older and 2 younger.
Yeah.
And, well, I have, from my father's first marriage also, sisters and brothers. So, but I think my thought then was my family, because something similar happened to an uncle. I don't know for sure if it was like a retaliation, but, you know, the one uncle that got involved heavily into these drug cartels, you know, it must have affected his family, because somebody, his brother, one of my mother's brothers, when I was very young, I was 7 maybe, was murdered in cold blood, you know, and nobody knew why. But I know that these things, you know, when you're involved with this kind of, you know, people don't care. They don't have a care. They go after your family. They go after whatever. So I thought about that, and I was like, no. If I start something, if I go, and I knew where the guy lived, I knew the guy, everything, everything. So I was like, no. And if I would have told a friend, like, you know, there was a few that would come into my house, you know, and I you know, I couldn't go down that road.
Yeah.
You know,
what'd you do?
So I ended up spending those 4 days in the hospital, and really, when I say really davening, really, really, really turning to Hashem, and just really, really asking, like, help me, get me out of, but for good.
Yeah.
You know, because I always kind of, you know, and I love my family and everything, but I always kind of avoided my uncles, you know, when they would come to visit, you know, my mother and stuff. I always just kind of stayed. My father kind of warned me, you know. They try to recruit him. They try to recruit my father.
Right.
So he warned me, you know, he said, you know, some things that you can't know or whatever, but you just... And so I did. I stayed, but I at this point I was like, I want out of everything. Just, I want a whole new world, you know, something completely different from the environment that I'm in, and because I didn't have a choice a lot of times. There were family members, or there were best friends, or there were this or that, but they were in the wrong paths. When I got out of the hospital, while my time in the hospital, I was reading Tehillim. I was like reading a lot of Tehillim, really. And when I came out, I was at my mother's house, and I had this crazy breakdown. Like, just, I was holding a lot of it, and I just ended up having like a nervous breakdown. Really weird. So what happened was, I was listening to this pastor, minister, who was like talking about the story of, I believe it was Yoshiahu. He was a young king.
Yes, Yoshiahu.
Yeah, and his father made all these psalim, like
Yes,
all
that's
these,
right.
And he knocked them down. And so this preacher said, he made it applicable. He applied it. And he says, this is what you need to do. You need to get rid of all the idols in your life, and you need to turn to God, the only one true God, the God of Israel, and all this stuff. He was speaking like that, and I was like, this is it. This is what I need to hear, because I was really trying to find, like, what is it that Hashem wants from me, How are you going to turn me into something different? How are you going to change my life?
Yeah.
Christianity wasn't really doing it for me, honestly. There wasn't enough rules or enough, like regulations. It was just kind of a free fall. You believe, great, but you can be a whatever you want. You can be a murderer, you can be a drug dealer, you can be whatever. As long as you believe, you're good. But no, I didn't. It wasn't doing it for me, So I took that and it just did something to me. I really, wanted to grasp that concept of destroying it. So I prayed like a really heartfelt prayer, and I asked God. I said, I asked the God of Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, because that's how we were taught to pray when we were kids. The God of Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac. I said, take all the idols in my life, everything that does not belong to you, everything does not resemble you, everything that you don't like. Take it out of my heart, out of my life, out of my everything, and please, and I was crying. My mother came, gave me moral support. My sister, my stepfather also, and they prayed with me, and I cried a lot. I cried it was just something that I really felt that it was the life and death, obviously,
Sure.
And I got up. Wipe my tears, hug my mother, whatever. And I got on the phone with my wife. At this point, my wife and I were like long distance, relationship. We would speak on the phone.
How did you meet her?
I met her through her family. Her family was the pastors in my church. So I knew all her cousins. I knew her brother and her sister. I knew the family, and we were speaking on the phone. And at this point, she was like my best
Where
friend.
did she live?
She lived in Austin, Texas. So we built this really, really close relationship for like 3 years at this point. And
So you kind of already knew that you wanted to marry her.
In a way, yes. She was a lot younger. She was 6 years younger than me. So I was like, I gotta wait till a couple more years or something. But I did feel like, But my mother tells me, my mother turns to me and she says, you know what? I think you need to move to Austin, Texas, and you need to go and marry this girl. I think she's the one for you. And I was scheduled to fly to Reno, Nevada to finish recording an album with a band that I started. I was there like for a year. And my plan was to go back to Texas, but not Corpus Christi, Texas, stop in Austin and settle, like Yaakov Avinu, he settled. That was my plan, and I did. And as soon as I got to there, I started playing music also in their church, because her father was a pastor and they had their own church and congregation and all that. And as soon as I remember almost immediately, they were talking about the Chagim, the festivals and things like that. And it was not new to me. It was just more of an elaboration of what I was taught as a kid. And it was something that kind of refreshed my spirit, my soul. That's how I felt, It was refreshing because it was something that we were taught when we were kids, but we had lost that kind of, this keeping Shabbat, things like that. We didn't cook even. There's people that didn't cook. There was even there's some churches in Mexico from our denomination that had mezuzot, had a Sefer Torah.
What do they use as a mezuzah?
on the
but what did they put? I mean, we know certain parshiot.
Real
they have
actual
to go and
mezuzah,
they got the same parshiot and they knew that because they'd asked the Jews.
It could be that they were, anusim. Could be.
Also possible.
Very much so.
Also possible.
To know this, and also to have a Sefer Torah. Who does that, you know? And also we used to sing some Hebrew songs.
Really?
Yeah.
What kind of
We used to
Hebrew
sing like Everu Shalom Alechem, Everu Shalom. Yeah, we used to sing stuff like that. There was another song that we sang. I can't remember it, but it was all in Hebrew.
Yeah.
I remember. But so this possibly, and so yeah, so they my mother-in-law started to do, and then the evacuation of Gush Katif happened in 2005.
Yeah.
And that was all over the news. And this was new to me, and I was like, whoa, what's going on? So my brother-in-law got into it like crazy. And she was like watching listening to all the shows on Arut Sheva, you know?
Yeah.
It was like there was very little internet at that time, you know? It was like not a lot of, there was, you know, especially for English speaking, you know, Jews or whatever, or Israel news, it was Arut Sheva. So she would listen in, because she was always interested also.
Lucky it wasn't Haaretz.
Right, exactly. You know, so, you know, afterwards she was listening to the shiurim, and and then there was the story that she always tells that during one of the shows, one of the Jeremy Campbell, he was reading off some email that somebody wrote, and that said, you know, this evacuation from Gush Katif is happening to the Jewish people because they don't believe in Yeshka. So he responded in a very strong way, you know, we'll never believe in your false Messiah, like, you know, basically throwing him the book. And she was intrigued by that. Why don't Jews believe in Yeshu? So she started researching. And then she actually took a sabbatical from her job for a month. She's a pharmaceutical doctor. You know, so this is like you're resigning, it was a huge thing for the family, you know? So she spent literally day and night researching. She was going through all the motions, and she started going into Rabbi Toya Singer and all the stuff. And then during the Gush Katif situation, my father-in-law and I came to Israel for 3 weeks. She sent us, she was like, you guys go and help find something to do, you know, like help go see what's going on, you know, go whatever. And we're like, I was like, road trip, you know, kind of thing.
Road trip, yeah, cool.
And he was like, he's a pastor, so, you know, yeah, it interested him to come to Israel, but at that time it was like, he was apprehensive. He's like, there's wars there, there's this, there's that, you know. But we came, you know, and I saw so many different faces of Catholicism and Christianity and all this stuff, and like, you know, it was interesting. It was a whole trip. We went back, and by the time we went back, she was already set on Christianity being false. She didn't speak to him though, because he was a pastor, and it was, you know. So eventually they had that conversation, you know. And then that conversation was passed on to me, you know. I was my wife and I at that time were already engaged. And she ended up calling me over, and she tells me, she's like, you know, my mother just found out that this whole Christianity thing it's not real. It's like somebody telling you Santa Claus is not real.
I know, that's got to be fundamentally shaking your world if this is what you've grown up in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like they say, you know, sweep taking the rug from your feet, or what do you say?
Yeah.
But I remember my response was, I looked up at the sky, where I was outside, looked up at the sky, and I said, I knew it. I just knew it. That I knew it wasn't just, I knew that this was a hoax, that this was not like it was just a mirage, whatever.
Yeah.
It was not just I knew it. It was more of like, I knew Hashem, I knew that this was your answer. When I, you know, fell flat on my face, begging you to get me out, to save my life, I knew that this was I knew that I knew you heard me. Like, I knew it. And I just I was like, man, I knew it. I knew this was the answer. I knew I knew I'm getting to the truth, to the real truth. And so many things that I knew it, like, was packed with a bunch of, you know, and my wife was like, she's surprised that I responded like that. And eventually we got kicked out of the church because people found out that we didn't believe in Yeshua anymore.
You, including your father-in-law?
Including the father-in-law. Yeah, it took a while to convince him, not to convince him, but like to help him understand.
Yeah.
These are like, you have to study. You have to dig. You have to dig in. I spoke to my pastor. You know, I asked him about all the prophecies of Tobiah Singer. Went down the list. I gave it to him. I wasn't, you know, I went face to face. I drove 3.5 hours to put those papers in front of his face, and I said, you know, tell me what is this? He didn't have an answer. Nobody had an answer. Everybody just shook their head like, I don't know. This is crazy. It's hard to swallow, you know.
I mean, when you say this paper, what's this paper that we're talking about?
So it was a list of over 300 prophecies that Yeshu did not complete that disqualified him for being the Mashiach. And definitely disqualified him for being God, because like that was another discussion in our church, because we didn't believe that. But we didn't believe that Yeshu, like the Son of God, was not God. That his role was just Messiah, forgive your sins, whatever, intermediary. Is that the proper word?
Intermediary, yeah.
Yeah, intermediary.
I mean, like that's one of those subtle things that's different between Catholicism and Christianity, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I don't think Catholics believe that that Jesus is the only way. I think that's why you have other saints.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay, that wasn't what I expected. I thought like Catholicism is like about this Trinity and you know, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and
they believe that, but
it's all like all shituf, that they're all part of the same.
They're part of the same character. Let's say, yeah, they believe, and that's a big discussion. That's a big. It's a big machlokus. It really is. It's a big machlokus between them, you know.
Okay, well, they're welcome to their machlokus.
Exactly.
They should have it far away from us.
Yes, please. No, these things are just they're laughable. They're really laughable. You know, this is one of the things I said. Like I said in the beginning, it's just we have the truth. We know we have, when you have the truth, when you have the Torah. Because all of these religions, without Judaism, they're nothing. Yes or no?
It's all like the tent pole of all of this stuff is Har Sinai.
Exactly.
If you don't have a Har Sinai, then everything else kind of falls apart.
Right.
It's all predicated on that. The Christians come with their replacement theology, and the Muslims came afterwards with their replacement theology. Yeah. But it's all predicated on that one moment of revelation of God to man.
Absolutely.
At Har Sinai. If you don't have that, then you've got nothing for anyone.
It's an old it's an old FOMO situation. Yeah, it's an old FOMO situation, because it happened in Dora Palaga. Dora Palaga, what was their shtick? Yeah. No, we're stronger than God. We're gonna prove it. We're gonna build a tower. We're gonna go fight. Come on, you know, stop with the, you know.
What kind of immature idea can you have that you're going to go up and
it's happened. It happens to this day. You have musicians and artists and Kanye West, you know, like all these people that they actually believe that they have real superpowers. They're above and beyond, and they're whatever, to the point where they believe that they're actual gods, that they're mini gods.
There's individuals who have psychoses.
Sure,
but like you have an entire generation that thinks they're going to build a tower and go and fight against God.
Well, what is the internet?
Yeah.
Or social media. Or
I don't think they're trying to. They're not trying to fight against God. They're just trying to ignore God.
Not necessarily, but it's like I'm saying, like obviously it's not the same. It's not the same exactly. Yeah. You don't see like twin towers over there, but you see the mentality, the egotistical, mentality of being above. And this is why I believe, for so many reasons. Okay, but I believe that is the core of anti-Semitism. Right? Because what is the Jew? The Jew represents the Torah. The Jew represents core value and belief in God, and one God, not one of number, but one of quality, one of uniqueness.
Okay.
One of uniqueness. There's one God, and it's not one that's attached to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and all the other
That might
gods.
explain, why polytheists or some kinds of Christians might hate Judaism, and why Islam. Then they're also monotheists.
Yeah, that's a hard the back and forth with Bnei Ishmael is one that it's tricky because we're related, and they stem from the same Avraham Avinu, but just there's more. There's more than that. There's so many different beliefs. There's so many different you have Hollywood. They have their own religion, basically. You know what I mean?
I mean, wokeism is a form of anti-religion, but it's nonetheless it's a religion in itself.
Yeah.
That's it's a nihilistic religion that tries to destroy everything rather than build things. But nonetheless, it is a kind of a religion / cult.
Yeah. There's a lot of it, and it's almost endless. It's almost endless. But Baruch Hashem,
So let's get back to
we got to the truth.
Yeah.
So there, long story long. There's just so many interesting details, because I think what makes this, people that come from where converts, people that want to explain or talk or whatever, because you see the hand of Hashem in every situation. If I would have, stayed, I don't know, living in this area or whatever, I would never have met this person. I would have never have met my wife. I would have never had so many things that led me to, to be where I am today. Those details, and you see Hashem in every detail, and it's like Hashem led me this way. Even getting shot was a huge thing, because it was like I was done. I was like, okay, I'm over it. I'm out of here, kind of thing. We eventually left the church. We got kicked out with the overseers, whatever you call it. So we went to a few options that we had there. Not a lot, but we ended up at a Chabad. My wife got offered a job to be the assistant teacher. Like the first Shabbat.
This is while you're on your conversion track, or
this is like at the beginning stages of that conversion.
So I mean,
track.
what's your first step? You say, okay, I want to become Jewish. What's the next thing you do?
No, it wasn't that.
What was it?
First, it was like, we're doing it wrong. We're doing Christianity wrong. Mm-hmm. It was started as like a messianic Christianity, just infusing Judaism with Christianity, basically, is what it is. And then you had, that wasn't enough. I was like, no, as you learn more, obviously we were also listening to rabbis' speech, shiurim and different, it's just it became like, no, this is still not, it's very blurry still. The truth is it's not what it is. Then I remember the Noahide thing, B'nai Noach, and it was like cute, but not enough. It was like...
Where did you come across the B'nai Noach?
Well, my in-laws, they did a lot of the research.
Right.
They did a lot of the, I would say the steering, the driving, what I mean? They were the driving force. Not that we just took a step back or whatever, but it was like, we trusted, and also at that point, he was like my pastor. So he was like my spiritual guide and stuff like that. And I also questioned everything, obviously, and spoke to my mother, spoke to my father a little bit too, and spoke to the pastor that was like, that I had before, and eventually I stopped, but there was a chapter in Texas that was not too far from where we lived, and I was like, oh, this is an option, could be one of the reasons why I think we were leaning towards the Noahide community is because we had heard that to convert Orthodox, you would be rejected, which is true. You are rejected 3 times.
Partially true.
You know?
Yeah.
Partially true. No, you're supposed to be 3
Yeah.
times, said, no, it's not for you. And if you're serious and you come back and you continue, then, then okay. And then we read that and it was like, oh no, we just had to go 3 times,
All right. Okay. No. Yes. And now.
Yeah.
And now.
How about now? Yeah, exactly. It was almost like that. I'm serious. It was so weird because when we got to the first shul or synagogue that my in-laws went to consult with the rabbi was a temple. Okay. There was a JCC, the Jewish community, and there were several shuls within the community. Dell Computers, Dell Computers?
Yeah.
So the founder of Dell Computers, Mr.
Michael Dell, yeah.
Michael Dell. So it's his community in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
So we were part of the community there. So they went to the reform. Again, this is new.
You have no
Everything's
idea
new.
what's going on with it.
No,
I know. I actually spent 3 weeks in Austin on a work assignment. Yeah.
Nice.
I found the one Orthodox community in Austin. I mean, they were davening weekday minyanim in a school somewhere.
Oh, wow.
And like they were so happy when I came for.
How long ago was this?
3 weeks. This was 2013.
2013. So it was Tiferet Israel.
I can't remember the name of it.
Rabbi Eliezer Langer?
No, it was something with an M. Oh gosh, yeah. If he listens to this podcast and he hears me fumbling his name, then I'm going to be very embarrassed.
No, it's okay.
It's something.
This was a while back.
Yeah. But yeah, they were so excited that I was coming every morning to the minyan and like, oh wow, we actually have a chance of making a minyan.
Yes.
And like,
that's how it was. Yeah, that's how it was. And Chabad, Chabad was there, and a like modern Orthodox or the other shul that was Orthodox, but my in-laws didn't know. They at that point we figured now that we're gonna get rejected and that. So they went to a reform and they sat with the reform rabbi and they said, so the reform rabbi said, I hope I'm not offending anybody, He says, he says, how would you feel if, this is the first question, he says, how would you feel if I told you that just 2 weeks ago, I married 2 women here? And so they were like, I think this is not what we're looking for. Yeah, I'm not sure this is what we're looking for, but we appreciate your time kind of thing,
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that he was upfront about that.
Well, I think that he realized that they were looking for something more Orthodox, I think.
Yeah.
So anyways, we ended up going to a Chabad. My wife started, assisting as an assistant teacher there almost like right away. And we started, she was bringing the homework, she's bringing, like the kids' worksheets and stuff. And that's how we started learning, like Rabbi Akiva, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, that, like everything, all the songs, all the Hagim and everything. It was like literally like an answer to prayer because, like I said, we really wanted to learn like the Hagim, and that was one of the things that attracted, I believe, my mother-in-law towards because my wife once told me that she was looking for activities for the kids, and she didn't want to do. We didn't do Christmas, we didn't do New Year's, we didn't do Easter, none of that. That we saw that as pagan holidays and things like that. So she leaned towards the Chagim.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so we were loving it. We had and I think right off the bat, the community realized that we were a serious, we were serious. My in-laws were very serious. We were serious also, but I was kind of like, I would say I took a big step back and I hope I'm not offending anybody, and I have a lot of Chabad friends. And I have a sweet spot for my Chabad friends.
I'm sure.
But when my in-laws converted through Chabad, okay, so as they were in their process, they went to New York, and when they came back, they spoke to us about the community there, and they spoke to us about how the Rebbe has his chair. They still have the Rebbe's chair, and they sing to the Rebbe, and they say a couple of chants, and you know, for them it was cute and things like that. But in my head, I was like oh, bro, this is Christianity all over again. I was like, what am I doing here? You know?
Yeah.
I was very, I want to say, I'll be upfront. I was very disappointed. I was like, oh man. Because you have to understand, I left my family, I left my friends, I left my church, which was like, it was a fun atmosphere. It was music. I played music. I played in the band. We had a full band, drums, bass, guitar, piano, everything. It was like a concert you know, and for me, it was like, that was kind of, I mean, it was music, so it was fulfilling, you know, amongst other things. You know, I grew up with these people. We had history, like all this stuff, and I also, to leave all of that and to just start over again.
That reminds you awfully of what you just came from.
To start off again with the same belief, I was like, no.
It's a difficult thing. I know. I have a similar kind of, like, I absolutely love and respect Chabad, and it's the most amazing thing to go anywhere in the world and there's a Chabad house there where you can go and daven and find kosher food and whatever.
And they're Jews. It's not like they're not Jewish.
And it's just wonderful, wonderful people.
Yeah.
But the Mashiach stuff just gives me the creeps.
Yeah, man. I ain't gonna lie.
So I have this every now and then when I'm feeling a little bit mischievous, you know, and I want to pay a tribute to the Rebbe. I'll refer to the Rebbe as Zeichet Tzadik Livracha. You know, the Rebbe Zeichet Tzadik Livracha did so much amazing stuff, and like I see like who's like saying, wait, you can't say Zeichet Tzadik. Why? What's wrong? He's not a tzaddik. He can't talk about Zeichet. He didn't die. What? Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever. It's like messing around a little bit.
Yeah, I know.
but like just. I don't want to like turn it into a knock Chabad thing. First of all, there are streams within Chabad, and there's a lot of internal stuff where you know not everyone is a Mashiachist, and not all the Mashiachisting are such bad people either. It's just it's a mistaken belief, but it's not. It doesn't invalidate them or anything like that. It's just seems like a foolish thing to be chasing after.
Sure, I mean, and I mean, I always look at it. You know, and this is obviously everything that we do affects the world. You know, what we believe affects the world. What we believe affects the world. It's a ripple effect. And these kind of mistakes are grave mistakes.
Yeah.
We see them because there are kin, there are brothers, there are, we see it as, everybody has one of those brothers, Everybody has one of those in the family, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it really, it can really make an effect. Anyway, I just, how do you say it? I took a big step back when I heard all this stuff. It gave me a strange feeling that, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Really, what am I doing? And it did a lot because it wasn't just what am I doing, switching religions. At that point, I was
like at the moment you don't have enough nuance to tell the difference between Chabad is not like all of Orthodox Judaism, or do you
not
have that?
Yeah, not necessarily, right? Exactly. I had been to Israel and I seen but also my in-laws were going in that direction,
right?
They were going to the Chabad every Friday night, like things like that. So I was like, no, I don't know about this, bro.
No.
So
I actually had I spent one Shabbos in Crown Heights with a friend, and spent a Shabbos there, and I thought, while I'm in Crown Heights, let me go and daven at 770.
Yeah.
And he wanted to wait and go later because they're not very much good on davening mincha before Shkia. So I said, I knew this. I went in well in advance. And I said, look, let me go ahead of you because I'm much better about davening mincha before Shkia. Let me go. So he gives me directions. I get to 770, and it's like a whole shtibble downstairs. You've never been there?
Never been there.
So they've got a whole shtibble downstairs, and like minyanim going every 5 minutes. There's another one saying Ashrei, 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 Ashrei. Like you join onto the one that you want, and I came in, and straight away they were saying Ashrei, and I started. I joined onto them and started davening and joining, and came into Shmona Esrei, and like I'm davening in Shmona Esrei, and like. I'm still like I'd been rushing to get there in time for Shkia, and like I was a little bit, out of breath, and I was like not really focused on my davening, and I look around and I'm seeing all these posters around of Yehi Adonenu and like pictures and all these weird slogans and things, and I'm thinking,
whoa,
I do not feel comfortable. I don't know if this is Avodah Zarah. I don't think it really is, but I do not feel comfortable, and the hairs on the back of my neck are standing up, and I say, I actually cannot daven here. I'm sorry. I finished my Shmona Esrei. I think I might have waited for Kedusha or something and answered Kedusha, and I left and I went to try and find another minion to daven Ma'ariv. I actually just I couldn't bring myself to stay there.
It's tough.
It was,
It's tough. Imagine somebody coming from those posters and all saying just a different name.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, no, I took a huge step back, and it took us like 2 years to finish, to actually, not to get back into it, but I think it was a matter of a short amount of time till we discovered another shul, which might have been the shul that you discovered while you were there, which was like a modern Orthodox, not necessarily, a black and white, shul like Chabad was, I think was the first exposure, I remember going to the Chabad for the first time. I was in Chabad. I was like kind of like reserved. I was like, it was a Friday night. We had dinner there, whatever, and I kind of stepped out. I was kind of like sitting, kind of just waiting for time to pass, whatever. I had nobody to talk to. I didn't know anybody there. So I'm like sitting.
Milner, that was his name, Rabbi Milner.
Milner.
I think that was his name. Maybe I'm wrong.
Austin, Texas?
Austin, Texas, yeah.
Okay, maybe it was after Rabbi Langer stepped out.
Could be. I don't know.
Because
I don't know any of the history of that. I just know who was there at the time.
Yeah. No, so I remember the Chabad, the rabbi's son. He was maybe like 5. He comes up to me and says, "Hi, how are you? Shabbat shalom." I said, "Shabbat shalom." He just told me straight up. He says, "You need to get a white shirt and black pants." And then he walked away. He walked away, and I'm like, "Okay, thanks. Good job."
What were you wearing at the time? Shorts and...
I don't know. I was wearing like, regular, maybe khaki pants. I don't know. I don't even remember what I was wearing, but he told me, you need to get yourself a white shirt and some black pants. I'm like, all right, brother.
Okay.
No, but the show that we went, the modern Orthodox show, everybody's dressed different. Some people even drove to show,
Yeah.
But it was the rabbi that was doing some work there, he was doing some like kiruv kind of, helping people get more observant and so on and so forth. And we were there until we made Aliyah in 2010. Made Aliyah in 2010, which was right after.
So your conversion, where did you finish your conversion?
There in Texas.
With that rabbi?
With this rabbi, yeah. From then, at that point, I was like, okay, this is more
your flavor.
I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I just felt like, I want to be disconnected, from the things that I had, grown up to believe, because at that point it was like, I already knew. It's like believing in Santa Claus, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. This is just a hoax. I got a hold of some Torah tapes, from Torah tapes. That's an old way of saying it, right?
Yeah, because in those days there were tapes.
Yeah, CDs, actually CDs, tapes, CDs. Yeah. Rabbi Ali Mansour, was my from the Brooklyn community, the Syrian Brooklyn community. I got hooked, and I was just listening all the time. And he had also a website, dailyhalacha.com. It's a Sephardic, website. And I was just soaking it in, man. I was like hooked. I was falling asleep with my headphones, washing the dishes. My wife was, I'm trying to get your attention. She'd pull my earphones off my. Oh, I'm sorry. What were you saying? So it was just, I want to say love at first sight kind of thing. Like I just really fell in love with just every word, that was presented, that I was hearing.
So if you're forming a sort of remote connection with Rav Mansour.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
How, did you ever consider going to New York?
Actually, it was so funny. I spoke to his shamash, his the gabbai of the show.
Yeah.
By accident. I called his office. Something was up with my account on his website. It was like one of those accounts where you put money in and you can download a shure for $2 and whatever.
Yeah.
So I had like, I don't know, $50 or $100 on my account, and I wasn't able to access it. Something was going on. So I called the office, and the guy picks up, and I knew his name, and I knew because from the shiurim, the rabbi mentions him and this and that. So I said, "Oh, you're the guy that helps the rabbi." This and that. I was like, "Oh," and I said, and I noticed a Spanish accent. I said, "Hablas español?" And he says, "Oh yeah, I'm Venezolano. He's from Venezuela." And he talked it up, and I told him the whole story and everything.
Yeah.
And the day I went to mikveh, right, my first mikveh, when I became Jewish. So I called him the night before, and I told him, "Hey, guess what? I'm going to mikveh tomorrow morning." And he says, "No way! I'm so proud of you." This and that,
Yeah.
We were kept in touch. And then he tells me, "Do me a favor, send me a voicemail." At that time, voicemails. He says, "Send me a voicemail and record your whole. Just say to the rabbi, explain to the rabbi." And so I did. And he told me later. He showed it to the rabbi. And the whole thing. It was just so, for me, it was like, wow, And then weeks later, or maybe months later, he sends me a message. He says, "Come to New York." And I said, "I would love to visit. I never visit." He's like, "No, move to New York." And I was like, "What?" Mm-hmm. Syrians don't accept converts, right? Like there's a gezerah on the community.
Really?
From one of the previous rabbis. Rav Kassin, he put a gezerah.
Does that mean that they don't do conversions?
They don't do conversions.
But if somebody was converted elsewhere, they accept him.
I heard some shuls don't even give you an aliyah.
Huh.
Things like that. They're very machbid, on this kind of thing. I'm sure if you come in married already, it's a different thing. I think Rabbi Mansour also mentioned that they're not. Don't worry, we'll get on one of the shiurim, but you always have that one guy. Anyways, you always have that one gabbai. Mm-hmm. No, but yeah, they're just very strict. Again, they don't do conversions, right? So I was like, I told him, "Are you serious? You want?" I says, "Yeah, man. I spoke to the rabbi. Come, you can work with me." And he worked in media and so yeah. And I didn't even mention it to my wife, but she took my phone to make a phone call one day, and she saw those text messages. She says, "How dare you make plans without me?" And I was like, "I wasn't making plans, But she's like, "Nah, we're going to Israel." And I was like, "Okay, that's better," So yeah, I was like, "Okay,
skip that stop."
Yeah, but no, I was invited for the community.
Roll back to your conversion experience. I'm just like, did you feel different?
Honestly, I think the first Shabbat, I felt this kind of a heaviness. I couldn't explain it. I felt it, just inside. And I spoke to the rabbi, and he says, "That's the yoke of Torah that's on you now." I was like, "Whoa, it's a big responsibility, bro." You know, and it really was. It was like a huge change. That it was like something that I always wanted, and at the same time, it was like you have a huge responsibility, and I loved it. I loved it. Obviously, my wife was always, you have to have somebody that understands, that's with you, that can connect in the same way, and that was a big one. The conversion, the feeling after after the whole thing I think it was even more special that she was going through it too. And the reason I mention it is because people ask me, "Oh, so your wife she's Israeli, or they think that I converted and then married, or that I converted to marry a Jew," and I'm like, Why would you think that? How dare you? No, I just, I think a lot of people convert like that,
Yeah,
so like,
sure.
no.
I mean, everyone has their own experience, and
Yeah. So no, having that mutual, freshness, to life, it just really, really special.
did you have a new chuppah and
Yes.
did you have sheva brachas?
Yeah, we do. We have it everything, Baruch Hashem.
How did you do that?
So interestingly enough, because the rabbi is Ashkenazi, so I wanted to respect the minhagim.
Did you have any children
community.
when you converted?
So our first son was 1.5, I think, at that time. He was 1.5, and so we had a chuppah, like the Ashkenazi, minhag, and we also had a Sephardic talit over it.
Yeah.
So we had both, and I asked the rabbi, "Can we do?" He says, "Do whatever you want, go for it, bro."
Yeah.
So I loved it. So so we had a beautiful chuppah. My father-in-law wasn't able to make it. He was in Israel by that time. They were already converted. 2 years, I think, a year or two. He was in Israel, and but it was beautiful. It was something special about the chuppah. Very, very special. I was always like afraid of what I was experiencing, really, because you do vidui, so I'm sitting there and I'm doing a lot of introspection. I'm like, and so I'm reading the vidui and just connecting with Hashem, and then when I got up from reading vidui. So everybody starts singing, and I'm in this moment where I'm just like committing myself to Hashem, to my wife, to this is your Masheret, this is your soulmate that, you're creating this life, and you're coming back to, and it's just a huge, by that time I was learning every day, all day, like literally all day. I had a job, whatever, but during my break I was listening. And the whole concept of Kriyat Yansuf, how bringing the Neshamot, like all of that was just, everything was just running through my head and everything. And like when I got up and I started hearing the singing and everything, I literally felt the room shaking. I don't know if it was just me, but I literally felt the room shake, and I heard and felt like there was malachim in the room. Seriously, so much that I grabbed my rap. I have a picture. I grabbed out and I was just bawling. I was crying like a baby, man, because it was so overwhelming. It was so overwhelming. Seriously, and I think everybody there felt it too. Yeah. Wow. It was such a powerful moment, and now we've been living in Eretz Yisrael for almost 15 years. We've known each other, for about that time,
Yeah.
7 kids now, Baruch Hashem, Kanai Nahara, Sheva Brachas.
Hashem.
And it's a whole different world, It's a whole different world from where we came from, especially where I came from,
Yeah.
From all the.
And as a convert, I mean, I'm very curious to understand your experience of Judaism, of the community, because I'm, as a born Jew myself, I have Baal Tshuva, but nonetheless, as a born Jew, I grew up with all of the traditions, and even if I wasn't observant as a young man, it was still something that was familiar to me. And Chozeh b'tshuva, and you join the community and say, you're one of us. Do you ever feel like there's any kind of you not really a Jew, you're not really part of us, or anything like that?
No, I don't necessarily, I think within, and obviously this is it's like a very, almost like a something unspoken, you know, and we see it. I think it's dissipated by now, but I think there's the biggest, you know, indication of sinat chinam, you know, is like the Sephardic and the Ashkenazi, like, you know, and here in Israel you don't see that so much. You don't, you know, when you go to daven at a shtibur or wherever, you see everybody, all shades. You know,
I mean, I hear about it sort of secondhand, you know, when they talk about, you know, Sephardi girls not being accepted into Ashkenazi schools and stuff like that, and I hear about that. And what the heck? I mean, I totally get it that you'll want to daven in a shul that matches your what's familiar with you. Like, I mean, I was in Eilat last week, and there were only Sephardi shuls around us, and I was like going out of my mind because they were just like draying on with this thing and that thing, and like I was like, can we like please just like move on, and like and then they made it up to me by doing Birkas HaChodesh and like doing it in like 10 seconds flat.
There you go.
Birkas HaChodesh, okay, all right, you know. I'll let the other stuff slide, but still, it's but there was never a shaila that like I mean they were happy to see me and they understood Ashkenazi whatever, this is where we're holding and whatever. It's like, and the same thing happens in reverse. I never have personally experienced any kind of Sephardi Ashkenazi tension other than like maybe cultural misunderstandings. You know, we didn't understand what was going on. Is you did something that was a faux pas, and the Moroccans got angry with you and yelled at you because you did the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Especially here in Israel, you know, especially here in Israel. So I'm saying that those that might be like, you know, very seldom, or you know, like whatever. That's the only. So if that's seldom, you know, imagine coming in, they just think, oh, you're Israeli, you're Moroccan, you're you know, whatever they assume, but they don't, unless I tell people that I am a ger, you know, then they. Yeah, and I've never had any bad experience with that. Never. Baruch Hashem, like, never been told, like, you're not really Jewish, or you know, things like that.
Okay, good.
I see comments, you know, on other people's, you know, like other Gerim, like people that post, you know, that have social media. I think recently, Nissim Black posted something, and one of the comments said exactly that, you know. You know that you're not really one of them, you know.
But that's from an outsider who's trying to dig and say they'll never really consider. I've seen that as well with on other social media posts. I follow a few converts on social media who and I see the comments saying that, you know, they'll never treat you as one of them,
and it's not true.
I say, come on.
Yeah, it's not true.
I'm married. I've got kids. Like it's overblown. If it exists, it's way overblown. But as more to the point, like what, like you have grown up without having that experience of, you know, sitting as a kid at a Pesach Seder, of seeing your grandfather, you know, leading the Seder, and like these are things that every born Jew who grew up with any kind of remotely Jewish upbringing knew what a Pesach Seder was, knew what it was like to stay in Rosh Hashanah, and like, you know, I don't know if Sephardim do that, you know, but like these are things that are like in your bones, and you just know this is how people do things.
This is your nostalgia,
right? But it's not just a nostalgia thing, but it's also you can't learn Judaism from a book.
Right.
It's a collection of experiences. And like you'll find halachas in the Shulchan Aruch, in whatever, you know, that tell you that you're supposed to do X, Y, and Z, and like you know that if you eat, you know, if you wash your fruit, then you need to do Natilas Yadayim before you eat the fruit, and like this is a halacha. It's brought in, and like There's nobody in the world who does that. Nobody.
Right,
and
right.
this was actually one of the situations that came up in yeshiva, where one of my friends in yeshiva looked at this halacha and said, well, why aren't we doing this? And he went to the Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Goldfein Zatzal, said to him, should we be doing this? And the Rosh Yeshiva's answer was, have you ever seen anyone doing that? And he said, no. I said, okay,
I catch
there's
that's interesting.
There's your answer. But that's like so I'm just kind of building up to my my question over here is that you grew up without that kind of experience. So like when you ran a Pesach Seder, do you go as a guest to somebody else first? Did you have a lot of experiences as a guest before you could run your own Seder? How does it affect your Jewish experience?
Let's touch on the Pesach Seder, because I think that is like one that for me personally and in my family, we've actually so we had a Haggadah. The first one, or maybe the first two, were at the Chabad, and then and we did our own. I remember the first time we did our own. Rabbi Eli Mansour printed his own Haggadah, and we just followed. And we had one child at the moment, and we made it fun. We bought little plastic frogs, and made it interesting for him.
Yeah.
And so we enjoyed it. It was like, but we also were invited, to other Pesach Seders. And since we were in Israel, or when we made Aliyah and we started, going to the to the KSY.
Okay, that was a little Freudian slip over there.
The KSY, with Rabbi Haber, for the viewers, Kehilat Shaviti Yeshurun is the number one shul here in Ramat Bet Shemesh.
Okay,
nice plug.
And this is brought to you by our sponsors, Kehillat Shiftei Yeshurun. You can find us on the web at ksy.org.il, and donations welcome. Thank you.
Yes.
On with our regular scheduled programming.
Yes, exactly. And for the first 100 subscribers, we're send you a nice bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken, kosher. Oh man, you're one of the families. Your family is one of the families that has really made us feel like family. And I say that, with all my heart, really. We look at you like an uncle, like a. I'm
blushing.
No, but seriously, when we left our family, how do you move forward? So I think we've been at the Pesach Seder probably at least five Pesach Seders with Rabbi Kornbluth. Rebbetzin Sartikva and Rabbi Kornbluth. And they really, we have memories, with when our oldest, that's now 16, still remembers these are details and we have history, here in Baruch Hashem. We have a beautiful, and this is, it's part of, like you said, how do you build that? Well, you stick around. You stay in the community, you build relationships, it's I think more, and it's so interesting that you touch on the halacha side, because, and I would venture to say that not more important, but I would say that more, like equally important to learning and building your life within the parameters of halacha is building relationships. Ben Adam l'chavero, Ben Adam l'Atzmo. You have to build your relationship with Hashem. That's with halacha. That's the only way that you're going to build your relationship with Hashem. And building your relationship with the community, And we've, Baruch Hashem, been very blessed and very, we had the bracha of being here in Ramat Bet Shemesh for 15 years, other than the little blurb that we went to America for like 8 months, 10 months, whatever it was.
Right.
I say 8 months, I say 10 months, my wife says 8 months.
Okay. And at this point, it's like distant, distant history.
Yeah. But even, it's something interesting. When we left, it was like, oh, we're going to build, we're going to try to, build some business there and, try to, where our family was growing. It's not it can be challenging to make, parnasa. And we're like, no, we're gonna build something there. My wife is a dance instructor. She had the RBS Dance Academy for 8 years at that point. She's like, we're gonna branch it out. We're gonna go to Boca Raton. Like, we had friends there already. They were like, no, you can charge here 150 shekels for a month for your classes. You charge over there $150, a month. We're like, okay, we're gonna, but Bezat Hashem, so nothing. It was like chaos, it was whatever Hashem. But when we left, I was like saying goodbye, not just to the Eretz Israel, but also to the community, people that we knew for years. Danny Kaladi drove us to the airport. It was hard because we also look at him as a very close, not friend, family. At that point, 8 years. Come on, and I remember coming back. When we came back, this is during Corona. But when we came back and we started seeing people, I was like, I started seeing more gray. I don't know.
It happens.
No, but
my gray's all in my beard. I'm lucky. So, you only see it during Sphira and Tzarim. Otherwise, people think, "What? You're a grandfather? What? How old are you?"
Yeah. No, and it's like I told my wife, I was like, "Man, we have history here. We have a history, and it's very, very important for anybody and so we've never, Baruch Hashem, we've never felt any kind of rejection or any kind of, like, on the contrary, because, and this is the thing, because we're around Torah observant people, it's a mitzvah to love the ger. So we get all the love in the world.
But I want to just touch on what you're saying, because I've got another friend actually who's in Pennsylvania now. He and I were actually childhood friends in South Africa. We were at the same school together. He was a non-Jewish kid, but he remembered me as his Jewish friend and whatever. And after high school, we sort of went our separate ways, and he emigrated and lost track of him completely. And then, I don't know, several months ago, just found a message for me. Somehow he tracked me down and said, "Hey, you remember me?" I said, "Of course I remember." He says, "No, he's been going through his own little personal journey, and he wants to be Jewish. He's gone through this whole thing." And I said, "Okay, so let me find you. Where are you?" He's in Nowheresville, Pennsylvania. And I was saying, "Okay, let me find a Jewish community nearby." He said, he found a synagogue nearby. It's called Temple Beth something or other, and
Temple Bethel.
Temple something or other, and they had a pride flag in their window, and so then I had to school him a little bit on. He said no, he realized that there's some Jews who
he felt that they were too proudful.
And his closest Orthodox Jewish community is in Buffalo, New York.
Oh wow.
Okay, so fortunately, Rav Haber comes from Buffalo, and he could give me some contact over there. But he's very established in his town, and he's got a practice. He's a medical doctor, psychiatrist, and he's got a very established practice over there. And he wants to just learn Judaism where he is. And I've been saying to him all the time, you need to be in a community. You cannot practice Judaism in a vacuum. You actually have to put yourself in a place where you are learning and absorbing from other people, because it's not Judaism is not something that you follow from a book and you just sit on a mountaintop and eat mushrooms and
you're not Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Take it easy.
And even Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was part of a community.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and he only went into a cave because he had to.
Right. Yeah. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the Zohar. Can we pause for a second?
Yes, we can. Let's do that. Resuming, we're talking about community and that importance of being in community.
Yeah, it's a big. I also had a friend that was. There's a few people also that have this idea that you can't, like you said, you cannot practice Judaism, you cannot be you cannot be a Jew outside of the community. You can't. It's impossible. Minyan, right?
Minyan.
That's the number one for a man, right? Mikveh, for a woman.
I mean, technically, you can find mikvahs, you can find streams and rivers and seas and whatever.
I just wanted to
you can get away with it. And you can eat vegan and vegetarian and whatever, and you can get away with kosher stuff.
But the minyan you can't. That you cannot. You can't zoom it. You can't zoom it. No. So Baruch Hashem, we've had the huge bracha to be able, and that a lot of people that are making Aliyah that are English speaking, Anglo Americans, or they're coming here to RBS because. This is a very established. I, if I'm not mistaken, it's the fastest growing city in Israel, right? Mm-hmm. I would say so, and it's also.
I haven't seen statistics, but I can believe it.
I believe it also. Yeah. I mean, even just 5 years ago, there's so much building.
Yeah,
and people moving in right away.
Don't recognize the city. It's like it's mad how much building is going on.
And and the biggest Anglo community in Israel.
Is it now the biggest?
I think it is.
More than Ra'anana, more than Jerusalem?
I think, yeah. Compact-wise, yeah. I would say so. I would say so.
Yeah, again, I don't have the stats, but I can believe it, and that's
at least we're the coolest, that's for sure.
It's what?
At least we're the coolest, that's for sure. Yeah, people that are making Aliyah, I did a little, dabbled a little in the real estate here, and every Anglo family was like, no, we're looking for only and Ramah Aleph even. On Dolev, like,
okay,
take it easy.
A little bit too specific.
That's a stretch, But
that's one of the things that people the Israelis laugh at us, say like all these Anglos, not even living in Israel, and say, but honestly, for people who are coming from Chutz La'aretz, coming from a Western, American, British, South African, who are used to a certain kind of Western culture. Yeah. And if you're gonna plonk yourself down in a country that already is culturally very different, it is a really good idea. I mean, everyone's different, and everyone has different things that they need. But if you want to take a sort of a general rule, you want to minimize the culture shock.
Yeah, you're gonna live in the place. When you go visit somewhere, you can take a week or two in a different environment, in a different way of doing things, whatever, in a different scenery, whatever. You can live by the sea for only so long. When you're not used to, what I mean. It's true. You have to. So you're gonna live in the place. Hey.
Yeah. And actually, a couple of weeks ago, I met somebody who was visiting from New York, and they said Ramat Beit Shemesh is like the opposite of New York. Like New York is a place that everyone wants to visit and nobody wants to live. And then Ramat Beit Shemesh is like where everyone wants to live, nobody wants to visit.
Nobody just wants to visit.
There's nothing to do here. There's nothing to see here. I mean, we don't have tourist attractions or whatever. I mean,
we have some slides.
We've got the White Pool. So commercial break. White Pool is run by my son-in-law, and it's a really great experience. You should go to White Pool. Okay, it's not a real podcast if you don't have adverts, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Commercial break. We'll be right back after these commercials.
But it's a superb place to live.
for to raise a family, and that was the one, number one thing. Yeah.
If you're coming as a Frum Anglo,
Yes.
that's really the thing.
Absolutely.
As a Frum Anglo,
Absolutely.
you've got very few. I mean, just as an Anglo, if you're not like specifically looking for a Frum community, you can go anywhere.
Yeah.
But when you're in a Frum place, you want to have something that's a cohesive community.
Mm-hmm.
And where are your options for there? I mean, you can name them on like two hands.
Telstone.
Okay, you've got Telstone, you've got Jerusalem, Ranana, Modi'in.
Not even Jerusalem, but not even just like Jerusalem. It has to be like
it has to be a specific neighborhood in Jerusalem. Because Jerusalem's a big place. You've got to choose a place where they're Anglos, and Jerusalem actually is a place where unfortunately a lot of people kind of fall through the cracks if you don't actually find yourself centered around a community.
Right.
Jerusalem can be very anonymous. It's and, I mean, Tel Aviv is also a small community. But it's not. Tel Aviv is just not a place where you want to live a Frum lifestyle. It's a nice place to visit.
Too much on the opposite. If you're trying to live a Frum life, RBS is. I would say now it's so it's more like a yeshivish town.
Yeah,
it's like a little yeshivish, town
and very very community centric, and that's actually something that I think that the Anglo world is very much bringing to Israel. Is the concept of the community centered shul. Like even when we arrived, we made Aliyah 22 years ago. And even then, there were a few Anglo-centric communities, but it was still much more Israeli than it is today. And shuls were basically places where you went on Shabbos, you went to daven, you were Yotzei Zayin, and you did it, and there might be a rav who gives a drasha, but then it's like everyone goes home, and whereas I think the influx of Anglo immigrants into this place has really made it like every shul in this neighborhood has its character, has its rav, has its people who've gathered around and are actually forming little communities, real communities that are cohesive and that are people looking after each other and inviting each other and
it's a big I think it's a big advantage for Anglos, so for people that want to make Aliyah or thinking about it, or or maybe already, it's like if you're looking for a community that you have here in RBS also, you have the different shades of the Frum community. You have the different shades. Some shows are you'll see a lot of English. People from it's not cliquey though. That's the beauty of it. Like the Karabakh, for example. I've been going on Shabbat, with my boys because they have a beautiful like a teen minyan, and they have a teen minyan. It's not just their like they have a kiddush for them. They have a Sefer Torah even. They have a Kriyat Torah on Shabbat for them and everything. They have cholent for them. They have like every week is something different. One week is cholent, the next week is like like cinnamon rolls, sushi, this and that.
Teenagers grow up. What happens then?
They continue. Now you're moving to the big.
now it's the 20-year-olds menu.
Now you go into but it's something for, and also for the preteens. Also, it's a program that they have raffles. They have things. We used to say, one of the things I remember the rabbi used to say, one of the first things I heard, he says, you go, when the kid goes to shul because he knows he's going to get a lollipop, right? But he's used to going to shul. Yeah. It's a good thing to, like Rabbi Haber, gives a lollipop, and my kids are like, can we go to the KFC, the KSY? I get it mixed in. Can we go to the KSY? And I said, I know why you want to go to the KSY, right? To go say Shabbat Shalom to Rabbi Henry. He says, yeah, because he gives us lollipops. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. But when they get, it's like you give tzedakah, you give $1. Right, yes. You don't give like your whole life savings, You give $1.
You got to get that motion into it. Must become muscle memory. You stick it into your pocket and
you get used to it.
Right.
You get used to it. It becomes part of you.
Yeah.
You know, and so for the teens, rather than them, having other places to go, or sometimes not even going, having somewhere where you can have fun, you can schmooze with your boys, and it becomes part of your community. So, and my boys they used to not want to go to shul. Not, it wasn't that bad, but they're like, oh, we don't want to go, this and that, whatever. Now they're like, let's go, Abba, and it's cool. I love it. I like to see, because I grew up like that. I also grew up, when I was going to church, we had also like bake sales, and we had like events, and we had talent shows. It was always something. It was never a dull moment. There was always something going on, activities, plays, all this stuff, and I want them to have those memories, I want them to have that. And the car walk show here is like it is a place.
So is that where you spend most of your time here?
On Shabbat, I've been going there. We were going to the Mount Lopez. I mean the Mount Loas. Loas. I don't know why I gave Mr. Mount Lopez Loas. And so my mother's maiden name actually, Lopez.
There you go. So it's
yeah, we're going there, and then when they started we went a few times here, and it was like, oh, cool. So my boys loved it, and they're like, no, we have to go to Carwalk. Okay, let's go to Carwalk. So Friday night we'll go to Mount Lopez, to Mount Loas, and it's close by. It's it's like a quick walk, and then it's a Sephardic show, English speaking Sephardic show on Lachish.
Oh, it's an English speaking one.
Yeah, you get the drasha in English, sometimes in Hebrew. But it's just I feel like they feel this connection, and that's what my wife and I want them to have, a connection to their Yiddishkeit. Even in Gimel, when we're living in Gimel, Rabbi Torsky, that's there. He's a very hugging rabbi. He brings you in and gives you, and when we moved to Aleph, the first couple of Shabbats, we noticed one of my boys is very emotional, and he's like, "What's wrong?" He says, "Mr. Rabbi," He's like, "Oh, that's sweet."
Now, are your kids also into music?
And yes, they are. My oldest, unfortunately, he wants to be a rapper. He wants to be a hip hop. It's cool. I think he sees.
If you give him Nissim Black as his model,
that'd be great. But no, he wants to do. I think for the money. He sees like. He
needs to understand that you don't make money out of music unless you're in the A-list.
Try to. He's like, no, I'm gonna get there. It's okay. I think it's something for him to do. It's an activity. It's something.
I mean, do you make money out of music?
Yes.
Spotify probably has paid you about $100 up.
Yeah, no, Spotify. Are you serious? I think I keep up with like news, music news and stuff like that, and I think on a podcast on Snoop Dogg. Okay, he's like from the other world.
Yeah.
So he said he made like 75,000 off of Spotify, which is nothing compared to millions of views or streams. Yeah. So no, you don't make money off of music. You make money off performing live.
Yeah.
That's it's always been the case. And
I thought it actually changed that before the age of the internet, you put on the concerts so that you could sell your records.
Right. Yeah, it always changes.
Yeah.
It always changes, and I think that records used to sell. Mm-hmm. Now it's like nobody buys off of Apple.
It doesn't exist anymore.
Nobody buys music
because all you have to do is put it on Spotify and then you listen to it.
If it's out, it's out.
Yeah.
Period. So nobody needs to pay for music these days.
You're paying 20 shekels a month for Spotify or whatever.
Yeah, it's nothing, I'm
thinking how does that pay all of these artists that I'm listening to?
No, it doesn't. Spotify is, I think he made like 74 billion this past year. Something crazy.
Wow.
No, it was like a crazy number. Maybe more. Billion.
That's pretty mad.
How do you make? Okay, I don't know. I forgot the number, but it was something.
And then I was thinking, I was looking after my retirement by starting a new podcast.
No, yeah, you have to. And that's the thing, you know. I think we're talking about building community, and that's exactly what, you know, artists, musicians, you know, it's all about the social media. The social media, you build your community there. You build your community there. And from there, you know, you can how do you say it? Just like most, you know, syndications and things, you know, sponsorships. I don't know how syndication works, but I'm saying that if you have a social media presence, you know, eventually if you have enough followers, enough of an audience, if you're interesting enough, you know, then you get, you know, here and there endorsements. I've seen people like, you know, our community is so small, and like our audience is so compact, you know. You know,
like how many? Give me some idea of numbers. Like how many followers do you have on social media, and how many?
Not much.
and like, what's your top single on Spotify?
So my Instagram was at 8,000, close to 9,000, and I started over again. And basically,
why did you start over?
I was hacked.
Really?
Yeah. Somebody posted like a raffle, and I never click on these things. I never click on these things. Never. But I was working, and I was like, cool. And the guy was the profile was a Jewish guy with a yarmulke or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was like, I was like, oh, okay. And I just kept following his instruction. Like, you know, I wasn't thinking, because I was in the middle of work, and I was like, tuck, and I just eventually he took my number. He sent me a link, like a text message. He's like, click on that, and then you'll follow the questions, or I don't know what it. As soon as I clicked on that, I started getting email notifications. Your password, Instagram password, has just been changed. Like within seconds, he hacked me like crazy.
And you couldn't get it back.
I couldn't get it back. I sent for like few weeks. I was like messaging Instagram over and over, calling this, that. And it was a nightmare, and I just gave up. I was like, goodbye. Who cares? You know what?
Was that linked to your Facebook account because it's the same company?
Also, yeah. But the Facebook. I don't think that got hacked into or whatever. Like the Instagram was the only one, and whatever. I just started over again. So right now I have like less than 1,000, which you know.
But I mean, how do you monetize Instagram anyway?
The way I've seen it, you know, obviously once you actually have a bigger audience, like 10,000 followers or something like that, I believe, you know, for each video that goes viral, then you can, you know, you get some kind of a kickback from Instagram. Right. I don't know how it works, to be honest with you. Like I said, I just kind of I've been posting stuff that I'm doing. I recently I was part of a music project with Torah Box, which is a French organization. They're like the Thank You Hashem for the French community. And I did a Spanish song with them and with one of their artists. His name is Noah Mabiton. He is he's an actor. He does like a lot of content for them, Torah Box, and I think they have over maybe over 50,000, maybe more followers on Instagram and Facebook and all of that. Maybe way more than that, I'm sure. But anyway, they're very strong in the French community here and abroad. And so I did a song with him, and this was for Hanukkah 2 years ago. Right. And just this past 2 weeks, 24th of December, they had a whole event. You know, they had and they wanted to perform these songs that they recorded other songs, and so they asked me to come on and perform, and it was a night of music including a concert after our, was it like maybe 7 songs that we performed, Yisharibo concert.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, so I got a chance to, and I used to jam with him. We used to live in Yerushalayim, and we used to do open mics, and I knew him from back when, I'll share a picture with you. Maybe you can share on the he still remembers. I'm surprised, but he did a big concert after, and a lot of people commented that they enjoyed the first part of the show because I mean, he's already known. He's very but our songs were just different. That's just very dynamic. We did a song, like the song that I did was a merengue song. It's a very tropical, like dancey, salsa kind of music, which is so different from like the typical Jewish music.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, honestly,
very, very different.
Like I'm so bored of normal Jewish music.
This is different.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I would say is, if I was, given more time on my schedule, or 7 kids,
Yeah.
and managing a family of 7 here in Israel, it's time consuming. People ask me, when's the next song? And I'm like, you want to babysit for me? You want to come babysit for 5 hours?
I feel a bit like that with the writing, although I'm in a different stage of life, so
No, but I'm saying, you have your accomplishments, I have mine.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, we always, as creatives, we have this idea. I'm sure you have something in your head that is a big one, like or a series, of something that you would like,
Yeah.
And it's like so I'm in the same position now, but I post whatever opportunity comes. That was a big opportunity. I think that was great. I post things.
So do you have any recordings of playing with Yisharibo?
No, I have pictures, but to be honest with you, he was super shy. We literally had to push him on stage, like, come on, man, it's your,
How long ago was this?
This was like 13. This is when I first.
Oh, so this is before he broke into the scene.
Way before, yeah.
Wow.
Way before. Way back in the days. Way before he was
So
famous.
you knew Yisharibo before he was Yisharibo.
Yeah, I guess you can say yeah. No, he was very, very timid, very shy. Very, very shy. Almost didn't want to perform. We had to put like, come on, man, it's good stuff.
He's got a fabulous voice,
and eventually he would
such a sweet voice.
Yeah, smooth, calm. It calms you.
Yeah.
He's very unique and special. He's very, very special. But no, so my social media is I do.
So
I have a lot more.
What's your top single?
My top single. Okay, so "Open Our Eyes" has been the big one. "Open Our Eyes." It's a song that I believe it's not Jewishy, but it's like it's just enough to and I wrote it with the intention, like a friend of mine, Israel Laub, he's the singer that sang with Nissim Black, "Million Years." I won't let go even in a million years. Okay, so that's a beautiful song. So he actually, I was connected to him by Rabbi Behar. He connected me to him, and he had a studio next to the Mir Yeshiva. Yeah.
Okay.
Next to the Mir Yeshiva. So I remember that night that we wrote that. He helped me write it. So I remember going to the Mir Yeshiva and just kind of like trying to soak in the vibe,
Yeah.
And that came from that that holy place, Open Our Eyes. And so there's I have on Spotify, I think maybe probably like more than 160 or something like that 1,000 streams, which is it's not a million, but it look, I don't promote like most people do. Maybe I should. Maybe I need to get an agent or something
get
like
a little
that.
bit more into marketing if you want to.
More, I need to hire someone. But I just
I can totally relate.
Yeah.
Is that like marketing is like that's where I'm also like very weak.
It's free though, you know. I think I've seen people grow their audience on Instagram from like almost nothing to thousands and then tens of thousands, you know. And it's a matter of, you know, making content and posting it and sharing it. That's all. It sounds simple, but you know, but it is time consuming. It becomes a second job or a main job, you know, let's say. But Open Our Eyes is the, and then there's a song I did with Nissim Black also that's also has a lot of streams also because it's linked to his Spotify as well, so his view, you know, his listeners linked to mine. I have more followers like on my WhatsApp status, to be honest. Which is crazy.
Oh, that's
because,
hilarious.
Yeah, which is crazy because, you know,
like WhatsApp is not actually really designed for that.
Yeah, I know. Well, for our community and I learned this, that in our community we have more people that follows WhatsApp statuses than anything else. Like the Shay Zoli, for example. That's
pretty true, actually. Yeah.
And because we don't want to look into the YouTube ads and all those ads. So a lot of Froome people follow us. I have people from New York. Can I follow your, like they'll get my number from somebody. Either somebody showed them a video that I posted, you know, something funny or something, whatever, like I don't know, whatever it is.
Wow. Yeah.
And then they'll ask, you know, can I follow your status? And can you save my number? This. So I have like, man, I don't know how many contacts.
Because you've got to save the other person's number in order for them to be able to see your status.
Yeah, so I have like 4,000 contacts, more than 4,000 contacts on my phone, something like that. And that's no, it's crazy. It drives my wife crazy also, because she's like, for some reason our phones link contacts. I think because we share, like we have she has my email or something. I don't know what, but she's like, who is, you know, like Mikhail, whatever, you know? And I'm like, oh, it's probably, you know, whatever.
Pretty guy just wanted to listen to my latest single.
You know, something like that.
Saving his number.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, I'm hoping to grow it more, you know? I'm just, I don't know. I think one of the things is like, I never really liked the idea to be famous, to be honest with you. I never really liked it. I think in a way, I've followed a lot of artists. I used to watch like a lot of documentaries on artists, you know, back in MTV times, VH1, like all these, you know, and also and now even. And it's just interesting to see the life of the artists, the musical artists, and their trajectory and everything like that, and just to see. And I find that a lot of times people can be intrusive into people's privacy when they're celebrities, when they are in the public eye, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I would handle that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would handle that. I've seen it. I've seen fame make people and destroy people. You know?
Yeah.
I've seen that.
I'm sure we can all bring plenty of those examples to mind.
I honestly, I'm not a big fan of, and people tell me all the time, like, you have a good voice, you play good, you sing good, you this, you that. Like, why aren't you more famous? People ask me that. Why aren't you more famous? And I'm like, maybe if I pursued it, I would be.
But maybe I don't want that.
But I don't want that. I don't know why. I prefer to stay in my little Ramat Bet Shemesh, you know.
No, but
I don't know.
But yeah, I can. You know, there's so many things like
people get
Kadosh Baruch Hu that puts certain things in your life, and you think Rav Haber was actually mentioning about this today,
really?
in the context of Yosef and his brothers, and how they had their scheme about getting rid of Yosef, and Yosef, meanwhile, in his experience, is finding his life being pushed in a certain direction where he finds himself like rising up to be Potiphar's top guy, and then boom, back down to the bottom again into the jail, and then he's like elevated until he's like the second in charge of the jail as an inmate, and then next thing he's like boom, he's in front of Paro, and and next thing he's like second in charge of the whole country, and he's like saying, this is not normal. And Yosef is the guy who sees Hashem's hand in everything and realizes that, like, all the stuff that we thought was going on, there was something else. There was another hand going on, and he's got the ability to take like a broader look and a more mature look and say, okay, my brothers did some bad stuff to me, but you know what? This is Hashem.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, brother's experience is we sold a brother into Mitzrayim, and he's just revealed himself to us, and it was like, oh my gosh, like, what's he going to do to us? They have no idea what his personal experience is, or what he's thinking, and he's like at pains to explain to them, this is how, this is what Hashem wanted. This is don't beat yourselves up about it. This is, you thought you had plans in a certain way, and
Hashem turned it for good.
Hashem makes things work out the way they should. Like, there's so many things that we have in our lives that we think, oh, this is the most important thing for me now. I have to get this job. I have to get this house. I have to get this shidduch. I have to. It's like, this is the most important. And if I don't, then, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And it's like, you just got to realize that there are, what you think is important, it may not be.
Right.
And so many of these challenges, like separately, Rav Haber said, it's a really good thing that Hashem doesn't answer all of our prayers. He says, because if he had, I'd be a fireman today.
A fool. Rabbi Haber has those.
Yeah,
I love it.
But I also have this perspective.
A fireman.
From my personal experience, like, I as a teenager, I was very into politics. In South Africa, anti-apartheid movement and whatever. I got this in my blood because my parents, my mom particularly, was like a big anti-apartheid activist.
Oh wow!
And she was the kind who would like lie down in front of bulldozers, and she was working for the Black Sash and giving legal advice to people who were being manipulated within the system. And it was like always my badge of pride when I would come to school the next day and say, hey, my mom got arrested yesterday. So like, this is real street cred as a young guy, and I thought, okay,
rebel.
So I was very into the politics kind of thing, and came to Israel, and like particularly I was looking at stuff that was happening in Israel, and in 2001, 2002, just before I made Aliyah, I was pacing around like a caged leopard, just in South Africa, like not able to deal with all of the stuff that was going on in South Africa. Even then, the media was very hostile to Israel. And I was just like, I was like writing angry letters to the newspaper and whatever, and sometimes to my wife's embarrassment. I won't get too much into that, but I came to Israel and I thought, okay, so I'm going to get involved in politics over here, and maybe I should, follow up all the stuff. And
interesting.
And a couple of people, I can't remember, I may be conflating, maybe it was Rav Rabanowitz, maybe it was Rav Haber, who was saying like, you don't want to get into politics. You really don't. You're not the right person. You're not the right personality. It's a dirty business. And I was thinking, I thought about that honestly, and I thought, you're right. You're actually right, because I'm actually very conflict averse. I don't like. I'm so unstandoffish. I'll compromise. I'll back down. It's one of my weaknesses. I can't. I just cannot bear conflict. I can't stand and get in somebody's face and whatever. I'm always trying.
And here, that's all we do.
Whatever. Yeah. It's like such a good thing that I did not get into politics. Not just because of that, but because there's the other aspect is that imagine you do get into power. Imagine you do become mayor or some minister or whatever. And it's like, there's a reason why people say, power corrupts. And because it really does, and it always starts. Nobody who went into power and became corrupted went in saying, I'd like to get into power because I want to have that. I want to have power, and I want to make money and be able to do crooked deals. Nobody thinks that lechatchila, but it's just what happens when you get in there and you say, oh, here's an opportunity. Somebody's. you know, how bad is it? And like, you know, this
Slowly.
slowly. It happens slowly, and you don't realize it's happening. And can I honestly say that wouldn't have happened to me?
You don't know.
No, I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know. Am I better than any of the other politicians who went into power and got corrupted? And I'm just like,
You have
Baruch Hashem, I'm not in that.
Yeah. No, it's true. You never know, and there's a I like to my life is very simple, you know.
Yeah.
I keep it simple, and I enjoy just being able to be myself. And I think that's another thing that you know. I think that so many reasons.
Tochu
why
kabaro,
people,
right?
Yeah.
You know, tochu kabaro. Your inside and your outside are the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
There's a you know, while you were explaining, you know, isn't there and I remember Rabbi Hayward touching on this also. This is where I heard it the first time, the story of a Kohen that got into politics and became corrupt, and he ended up like killing a whole city of Kohanim or something like this.
Oh, hold on. So you may be conflating the city of Kohanim. Well, that would be Shaul HaMelech.
Shaul HaMelech, yeah. But this one was also something similar.
The Kohen, there was Yochanan Kohen Gadol. He was like his whole life he was a good Kohen Gadol, and eventually at the end of his life he became a tzedukah, and with basically was, you know, went off the derech and.
But he got into politics, no, or he got into something.
Yeah, it was
like
there's a lot of politics in those times. I'm not like the greatest historian about the stuff that happened in the times. Maybe that's what you're thinking of.
Possibly, yeah. But just, you know, the idea of going into a position and music, as we start, you know, one of the first things that we said is music is a powerful tool.
Yeah.
It really, really is, especially when you play an instrument. That's, you know.
Yeah.
So that, to me, I don't know. I think it's a huge responsibility. You know, it's a very, very big responsibility, and I hope that if I do, you know, get to the point where I can really practice, you know, my gift, like, you know, that Hashem gave me, to a broader audience and a broader audience, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I would, you know, really hope that I would be responsible with it, you know.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, because it is a big responsibility, you know. It is a big responsibility,
Yeah.
and people look at you a certain way. People look up to you. People start to hang on every word you say sometimes, you know, musicians, artists, you know, and you know, I don't know. It's a big responsibility. So, you know, we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
You know,
I got that.
but no, there's a lot more that I think that I still want to do, you know, but time is ticking. I'm not getting any younger.
So you want to give us an outro, Kiva?
An outro? Oh man. So I thought of something, you know, to do, you know, as an outro.
That one isn't in tune here.
We'll cut this out.
That's okay. It's part of the real thing.
So, sounds like in tune.
Yeah.
Oh man, I think I'll do Anna B'Koach, you know, just
Go for it.
I have this strong connection towards this melody and the song
It's
itself.
one of my favorite pieces of yours as well.
Yeah, and it's like it really embodies like the process, because I started this song, the writing it, composing it, like, you know, everything, like learning about it during my conversion, and you know, and then I finally recorded it here with Freddie Fabian. So it's a very, you know, כוח גדולת ימיך תתי צרורה קבל רינת עמך סגבנו אחרינו נורא לגיבור דורש ייחודך כבבת שומרם ברכם תחרם רחמי צדקתך תמיד גולם חסין קדוש ברוב טובך נהל עדתך יחיד גט לעמך פנה זוכרי קדושתך שבתנו קבל ושמע צדקתנו יודע תלומות ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד לעולם ועד ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד לעולם ועד ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד לעולם ועד ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד לעולם לעולם ועד לעולם ועד שכח
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was a huge
Yes.
honor to have you on as the first guest on the podcast.
the first
And Hashem should bless you with everything, every success, and every bracha in your life, and you
Amen.
and all of your wonderful family.
I mean, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And you should be Matzliach. And this podcast should bring out more and more light, you know? We need
Amen.
more good Jewish content, more people to share their experiences with Hashem. There's a lot of, beautiful light here in Ramat Beit Shemesh.
Yeah.
A lot of great people. Zat
Amen.
Hashem.
Thank you.
Shkoyach.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hakol sababa, where life takes a spin. Join the fun, let the talk begin.